welcome everyone to round 7, day 1 here of the OPL as we come to the very end of a very awesome season. My name is Julian Page-Time Guard. Joining with me today will be Christopher Papa Smithy Smith. And Papa Smithy, how are you on this fine day to kick things off in the OPL?
I'm super excited, Pastry Time. Only 6 games left. Almost all of them are going to impact the standings drastically. So I'm just excited to get into it.
Yeah, with that, let's have a check at the standings actually and see what we are going to be seeing today. Remember, almost at the end of the season now, and the Chiefs are still on top. A loss that I'm sure stings that they already received, but 12-1 right on top there, and the Direwolves sitting pretty at 10-2.
And those 2 spots at the top are locked in. Your first place and your second place teams, at least during the OPL regular season, will be the Chiefs and Direwolves. The action is at the rest of the standings. Legacy, Team Immunity, Avant, all really trying to shake up the top 4. And Fortnite and Sudden Fear just trying to get up the table as much as they can.
Yeah, you know, they can't make playoffs yet, but still important slots for them to fight for as well. Don't forget, you know, there is a relegation coming up for these teams. Want to make sure that they're, you know, in the best possible spot to qualify back into the OPL, and that requires trying to get above the other guy, basically.
Obviously, that 6th spot, that gives you the choice of the challenger team you play against, which could be massive, obviously, depending on how things go. So we're just going to have to wait and see which team can claim that 6th spot and just choose their OCS team.
Yeah, it's been a season of great plays and great players so far. Let's have a quick look at the MVP standings and see where we're sitting now. Not too many more MVPs to give away, and Swiffer firmly on top at this point, 60 points.
Say firmly, we will see Team Immunity in action on Monday, but Cheese comes up at 2nd. Those mid laners, Choo-Choo's right up there as well. Perfection finally breaking up the mid streak. And then some 80 carries and a jungler. Spooks. Jungle. Definitely a jungle.
Definitely a jungle. Sometimes feels like a support, I guess. You know, helping out his lanes. We'll see him in action
he
today
does
later on.
Stones only sin.
He does. That's technically a support item, right? Let's be real about it. But yeah, some awesome plays. Been a great season so far of OPL, but not quite done yet. In fact, we got matches today, of course, and let's have a quick look at the schedule as a result here and see what matches we have today. Only 2 for today, but of course, don't forget Monday, a full day of matches, of course. But for today, Sudden Fear will be playing twice as they move in towards relegation. Sudden Fear versus Avant will be our first game, and then Sudden Fear versus Chiefs for our second.
Yeah, double dose of Sudden Fear, but Avant in particular has a lot of work to be done today. They're the ones trying to give themselves the best chance at 4th, so they're going to really want to win in their first game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just important for them to retain some momentum moving in, keep their form up, get their practice in while they have a shot. And of course, Avant, a big deal for them as well, fighting for playoffs effectively now.
Yeah, absolutely. So 6 and 7, they are in the standings. This is their last game, will be the first game of the night against Sudden Fear. They don't pick up a victory. They're very much leaving things in Team Immunity's hands. So look, it's going to be a tight race, but the difference between 5th and 4th, that's playoffs.
Yeah, and it's been, again, a great race so far. So we want to know who you guys think has been your favorite players, your favorite moments, or whatever you're thinking, how you're watching the OPL. Get on Twitter and use the hashtag #IamOPL and give us your thoughts.
Absolutely. And there's also a website that we have. We've talked about it, referenced it quite a few times. Usually falls upon me. oce.lolesports.com. The schedule, the VODs, all the information, some great articles. Actually, a new one going up about Egypt today, I believe, that I was reading just before the broadcast. Some great content on there. Check it out.
Yeah, really excellent stuff. I've read every single article that's come through, and it's been absolutely awesome to learn a bit more about these players who have just really impressed us with their play. And now move in again to our first matchup of the day. Sudden Fear fighting into form, basically, for relegation. And Avant just trying to avoid the 5th place spot that'll lock them into OPL, but they really want to make the playoffs.
Absolutely. The minimum for our 2014 regional champions would be surviving the OPL, but they would have had grander dreams. They would have expected to be assaulting the top spots. 1st and 2nd, as we mentioned, they're already locked. It's already going to be Chiefs and Direwolves, but they're really going to want to hit the top 4 and just give themselves the chance for that late run and the chance towards the OPL championship.
Yeah, and as we get to the back end of the season as well, like you mentioned, a lot of the spots are not locked in. We have a ton of potential tie-breaks and clinches, so let's go through some of the situations that could be appearing here. Avant Garde to kick things off, currently in 5th, of course, contending for the 4th and 3rd spots to make the way into playoffs. Like we mentioned, this is their last game here against Sudden Fear. A loss would be at 6-8. Immunity with 2 games to play at 6-6. Avant Garde would at least like to be even at 7-7. They need to win tonight to put pressure on Immunity here, like we saw. Are playing 2 games on Monday.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, but you have to remember that Immunity's remaining games are actually against, at the moment, 2nd and 3rd place, against Direwolves and Legacy. So they have a lot of work to do in Avant against Sudden Fear, one of our lower teams. They have to get the victory to give themselves the best shot. If they win today, it requires Immunity if they want to lock in a spot to beat both Direwolves and Legacy, or at least win one of their games to force a potential tiebreaker.
Yeah, look, Sudden Fear also have some stuff to play for as well, so we'll go through some of what they're looking at here. Now, they're currently tied 6 in the standings with Fortnite. The head-to-head's even, so there's a potential tiebreak there. They have 2 games to play against fairly tough opposition in Avant and Chiefs, and they need to win. They need to win equal or more than Fortnite. They can't reach playoffs, but they can at least play for that relegation seed we talked about.
Absolutely, and tough games as we mentioned, so definitely no clincher for them. They've got 2 games left in the OPL guaranteed. Obviously, they can always fight for their spot next season, depending on how they go, but there's the 3-way ties that also need to be discussed.
You know, just to make stuff even more fun, there's also potential for this to happen. So we're going to break it down slowly.
There's a lot of information here.
There is a possible 3-way tie. So Legacy, Immunity, and Avant are all in contention for the tie here. So they could possibly tie for 3rd, which would be 3rd through 5th. And this needs to happen, Papa Smithy.
Absolutely. So these things all need to happen. These are not independent events. These all need to happen. Avant defeating Sudden Fear tonight. That would be in our first game. Direwolves defeating Immunity, Immunity defeating Legacy, and Fortnite defeating Legacy are your win conditions to force what will potentially be a 3-way tiebreaker. And you have to cast your mind back to, I believe, 2013 EULCS summer, when things got a bit crazy and there was the likes of the tiebreakers. And if those matches do happen, they will be happening on after Monday's broadcast.
Yep, so potentially in for a very long evening of OPL there to wrap up our last day of the season. But again, Avant at least have to try and win this game. That's all they can do, I guess, at the rest of this season. And the rest is potentially up to the tiebreak gods, I guess. There's a lot of potential for things to go very wrong or very right, depending on what you like.
Absolutely. You know, at 6 and 7, they've got 1 game left. There is still the theoretical chance that there will be a tiebreaker if Immunity lose both games next week. But this is Immunity. They always go 1-1. So if you're Avant, if you want to give yourselves a real shot, you need to win here today against Sudden Fear and just, again, put all the pressure on Immunity to perform right at the last match day.
Yeah, and again, Avant are going to start playing this game right now. It's their last game of the season against Sudden Fear. There's nothing else they have to do. And Avant, honestly, as a team, they've looked okay, but definitely shaky towards the middle part.
Oh, they definitely started the season on a weak note, you know, especially with Porky not in the lineup, just trying to get their new AD carry into the lineup, AD carry and support as well, of course. Veritas and Nada no longer on the team. They took a while to settle in. They took a while to get their bearings going. Chelby in particular, definitely been hit or miss. Still the aggression coming out in the likes of the Vi. But it's only when Porky came into the lineup, his Rumble game in particular was a highlight of the season against Legacy, I believe, in a big victory that Avant got to start kickstarting their season. They're coming in late. They're coming in strong, but they need a victory here to really give themselves the best chance for playoffs.
Yeah, and Avant sort of won last year by being underdogs, almost coming in, almost overperforming, and just becoming such a strong team. And right now, towards the end of their season, they do not have a lot left to play for. So Sudden Fear versus Avant. Avant will now begin their last game of the season. Sudden Fear on the blue side, Avant over on the red, and a Rumble ban there. Lots of respect to Porky.
Yeah, Porky will be able to return to the top lane. He had 1 game in the mid lane last time out. Now back in the top lane. It's the full lineup coming through from Avant. And as you mentioned, the Rumble game, 12-2-12 Rumble game against Legacy, against top opposition. Now the respect bans have to come through. It's not necessarily the tanks. It's not the Scion of the world that's banned up against Porky, at least so far. It's the Mage. It's Rumble.
Yeah, and that's what he's been playing. So 2 targeted bans there. Rumble Morgana over to Porky, like you mentioned. Targeted bans on the other side as well. Avant going for Lissandra LeBlanc, which are both mid lane champions, mostly actually for Sudden Fear. Nidalee, another ban there as well. A pretty common ban against both Chelby and Kensty. And now 1 more to go for Avant.
Yeah, a lot of respect coming to Apaps. You know, his LeBlanc in particular has been very, very impressive. His backup champion, his fallback champion, has been the Lissandra. So suddenly the mid pool is decimated. And we'll have to see what Paps brings out with a few champions off the board.
Yeah, last ban Rek'Sai though there for Avant-Garde takes a jungler out, and Scion is our first pick here for Sudden Fear. So Christmas Tree has 1 or 2 plays on the champion, but he's kind of been messing around. Big Gnar player and seems to love his tanks.
Yeah, Gnar, I believe, is the highest KDA of the team. He's definitely been performing on that champion, but Scion, he has been the OPL champion. If you cast your mind back to all the games, from the first game, of course, Swiper bringing out Scion against Legacy, that choo-choo train, it never stopped. It's been so strong. The win rate has been very, very high as well. So not a surprise to see it locked in. It has a lot of good matchups on 5.5. Saw a bit of a tweak, but still very strong.
And, you know, we've seen it in the jungle as well on this patch in the OPL even. So lots of potential there for the pick. Kind of a flex pick now, which is sort of cool. But Avant-Garde going to go through some picks. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see Chelby go to his most played jungler.
I mean, Journey, of course, on Thresh is not a surprise at all. It's usually been the disengaged support, the pure disengaged support, or just going all in on the Thresh. And the Thresh has been wonderful. We all remember the Sword of the Occult Junie, Thresh, really carrying, I believe it was 100% kill participation or 97. It was right up there. This is the champion that Junie's looked the best at. Of course, it can influence the game so strong. That one death sentence, it can win you a game. To give yourself that chance. Lock in 2 power picks.
Yeah, so comfort as well here for Avant-Garde. Thresh via their first 2 picks. Sudden Fear going to look for a couple more as well. We'll see what they do want to go for. Sudden Fear have mixed it up a little bit, I think. Kept things fairly comfortable, but haven't gone quite as off the rails as Fortnite have in some games.
No, I mean, Fortnite do their best off the meta, or at least with the meta coming back their way with the Sejuani changes and patch 5.5. But Sudden Fear, they've gone a lot more standard. They started off the season playing the likes of the Azir, the likes of the Xerath, and now have moved towards the meta champions. Doesn't always bring them a lot of success necessarily. They've got their few wins. They look very impressive when Paps can really overbear the mid lane and play from in front. Will he be able to do it this game? Of course, they're going to leave that mid pick till probably the last rotation.
Yeah, so they do go for Lee Sin and Corki, actually, the next 2 picks. So take, again, very strong, very standard stuff for them into their jungle and bottom lane, respectively. Avant-Garde, now, considering some of their picks as well, fun fact, Kensti has played, I believe, 8 unique champions in 9 games. So he loves to mix it up.
And even though it's the Vladimir he's hovering with the Ghost heal, it's in the realm of possibility. Kensti brought out the Vladimir famously against Swiffer's LeBlanc. Didn't go his way that game. That was a bit of a painful one to watch for you Vladimir fans out there. But it's still a possible, probably not going to be a blind pick, probably just a filler, and we're going to see something else.
Yeah, Kensi might even change it up. Probably doesn't have another unique champion to play here, unfortunately, but has already played the Vlad, has a game on Ahri here as well. And Kallista's just been almost the AD carry of these last few patches, it feels like, and that's what they're going to go for, Ahri Kallista.
And worth noting that Maz probably most comfortable on the Corki. Corki was taken away, so it will be M for Moon on the Corki. Had to go to a different champion. He's going to elect for the Kallista. Kallista at level 2 especially can really win this lane hard, but it can suffer a bit during the laning phase after about level 2.
Yeah, Maz's best performing champions have absolutely been Corki, Sivir, so with those taken out here, has to struggle a bit, goes to Kallista, which I think suits that sort of style of champion, but he's not playing super aggressive, Lucian or Graves, anything like that. We're going to go back to something that's relatively comfortable for him as Sudden Fear. Also looking for the same thing here. M for Moon actually been playing fantastically in the last few games. Ezreal, Lucian, his 2 big champions as well. And Brawler, he's being Brawler, having some fun.
Well, I'm smiling because this is a legitimate champion that he's considering. The support Nautilus, the supporterless as we like to call it, is being considered. He loves the Blitzcrank. You can understand the hook synergy coming through on Nautilus. With those tweaks in 5.5, the cooldowns being a lot shorter, it's definitely a viable pick and it's locked in.
Yeah, we have Nautilus and Ezreal, our last 2 picks here. So Sudden Fear again have 2 games to play, of 2 wins that they want to get. And they're going to do it their own way here, in style, with supportless coming through as well. Avant-Garde going to consider their last pick as well, of course. But Porky, been pretty solid. Might even go back to something super comfortable like Aurelia.
I mean, with the double AD locked in, of course, Corki does a lot of magic damage, but it's probably going to be the mid Ezreal. Double AD coming through. A strong tank line, but this is definitely a comp that's looking to take turrets early. You need a strong tank to deal with it. Aurelia has a high item ceiling. She does need to get the Trinity Force, so to get rolling, she needs to get some expensive items before she can get armor. But you can understand a situation where she picks up a lot of armor, the Trinity Force dives the backline. Late game, it might be tough for Sudden Fear, but they have one hell of a mid-game comp.
Yeah, they're going to try and really make it work there with the Ezreal mid plus the Corki for that double AD. Porky, of course, does last pick that Aurelia, so going to go back to something very comfy. And I feel like these sort of, farm-ish heavy champions really strong against Sion, who you're pretty much going to get an even lane against.
Absolutely. I mean, against Sion, you can pretty much run whatever you want, especially as the mana tweaks came in and now his harass is a little bit more expensive. It's harder for him to use his Roar of the Slayer off cooldown. You kind of have to watch it for wave clear and then, if possible, use it for the harass. So might put more points in queue, but probably still going to be an Emax. Gives you the line wave clear. Yeah,
and of course, pretty interesting comps there by both these teams. We want to know on Twitter, though, who you guys think are going to win. So get on Twitter and use the hashtag AVWin or SFWin for Avant and Sudden Fear, respectively.
It's just a really big game. There's a lot to talk about. You have to say, against Double AD, they've got a lot of engage coming through from Avant. The first lock-ins were the Vi. The Vi obviously being the clear initiation option, but they also have other options. They have Thresh, they have Aurelia, they have Ahri even, potentially for the pick power. So they have a lot of pick options. You worry that if the tanks aren't on position, if these carries ever overextend for turret damage, which is what this comp's really about, could struggle.
And yeah, I mean, over on the other side, we kind of already touched on it, but lots of aggression, lots of double AD. I do like the Nautilus. That definitely brings something very different to this comp.
I mean, the interesting thing about the supporterless, which I like to call it, it rolls off the tongue.
It does.
The big thing about it is it was picked after a Callista. And of course, getting on top of Callista, gap closing on a Callista is one of the hardest things to do. She just dodges skill shots as if they're nothing, but can't dodge that ultimate, the depth charge, I believe it is. So that targeted ability could be key to them taking down a Callista early in a fight, stopping the Ren sets from coming through. And again, I like it as a reactive pick. As a blind pick, a bit risky, but as a reactive pick and in lane against the Thresh, should be fine.
And it makes sense as well with the Vi getting taken away by Shelby, which you have to think he was going to go for. It's now his most played champion. Even if you combine his second and third most played together, he has now played more games on Vi than anyone else.
And look, has a lot of options, you have to say. In a double AD comp, he's going to be happy with either Ezreal or Corki. They both have long-range gap closes. When they're on cooldown, the Vi ultimate might be a big initiation. It's spoilt for choice in terms of initiation options because either of them, but again, he's played a lot of the Vi, but it hasn't necessarily been the most, the highest win rate champion for Avant. It's a comfort pick. It makes sense. Big dive against double AD makes a lot of sense. Eventually, when you get enough armor, you can outscale and really go for those engages. But there is a risk that you lose a lot of structures before your tanks get strong enough to start diving.
Yeah, so we're going to move into some of the other matchups as well. Mid lane actually is kind of where I want to go next with you, Papa Smithy. We've got Ezreal, been a very popular champion, seen so much play, it almost feels like, around the world. What do you think about the matchup versus Ahri? I know you're going to say skill matchup, but apart from that, what else can we look at?
I mean, Ezreal's really strong in the early game. Ezreal, just with a Doran Blade, dominates lanes because before people get enough mana regen and cooldown reduction to spam their spells and push waves against him, he's very, very powerful. You worry after 6, if the charm comes through, he does have the Arcane Shift to potentially get away. There's always kill pressure on Ahri lane. That's one big reason is with the increased mobility, the defensive stats that Ahri already has, with the Q having movement speed, you can get through a lot of early games. And then level 6, you can always outplay people. You have so much mobility that you can do crazy things, but so can Ezreal. This is a very highly mobile lane. Not really one you want to gank as a jungler, even as Vi with the targeted gap close. Skill matchup, I know you don't want to hear it. It's still that. In the early levels, though, I give it to Ezreal.
Yeah, and I think that's fairly fair here. For that reason, I do like the double dive that you touched on as well, with Aurelia especially. I think Porky, if anyone, that first teleport's probably something I want to look at because really crucial that he gets to the right spot, especially if it's in the bottom lane, to influence what could be a tough lane there, actually.
And look, the Aurelia gives carry potential, but it's not a mid-game champ. It's not necessarily the Maokai, who I think would have really dealt with this comp a little bit better. The fact that you could dive in there as a big tanky threat with a lower item ceiling will be better because Aurelia needs Trinity Force then tank items. You just worry that there's that situation where it's a 22, 23-minute Trinity Force and the armor just never comes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the always big thing, is that when you don't have that item, things just kind of fall apart. As we look through, nothing too other to note here. I mean, we've got Barry in the mid lane for APAP, so very defensive. Someone has spell choice. Funny to me that he would go from big engage or assassins like LeBlanc, like Lissandra, and then swap to something almost more like his Xerath, which he looked fantastic on in their first game against the Chiefs, but he's actually never played since then.
Look, I like the Ezra. I mean, I can understand how you compare it to a Xerath. It's definitely a champion that can hang back, but you're so flexible. You do get enough cooldown reduction. You pick up blue. You can go to the front of a fight, then use Arcane Shift, 475 displacement to be able to just kite backwards. He can kite very well. He can get in the front. He can get in the back. It's a very unique champion. He just doesn't have a lot of wave clear. That's the big thing. You look down the lineup, it's not a big wave clear team. That could be an issue for Sudden Fear. Pushing, it goes very well. But on the defensive, relying on maybe Corki for wave clear, it's not ideal.
And if we're going to maybe characterize some of the matchups here, just based on team composition, is it fair to say it's maybe mid-game versus mid-late game?
I think that's probably fair. I mean, it's very easy to pigeonhole Double AD as an early to mid-game comp. It still can be very strong and late, especially at turret pushing. You ever win a fight, you can take so many structures that the late game can end very quickly. But I mean, the big consideration is Callista, right? Callista probably does peak at 2 items. We always kind of have a hard time classifying her. Is she mid-game? Is she late game? Look, 2 items, she's very, very strong. Late game, she's situationally strong. But against a Scion, a champion who can isolate very, very well against the Callista, we'll have to wait to see against Scion and Nautilus.
Yeah, and that's actually the component I really like about Sudden Fear's comp, is having a big, only one tank, but a really massive tank. If you're only going to have one, Scion's a pretty good one. As we do jump into our first game here between Sudden Fear and Avant. Avant's last game of the season will begin now as we get onto the Rift here. And Sudden Fear on the blue side, they have 2 tough games to play today, and they really want the 2 wins.
It'll be very interesting to see how Avant start out this game. Will they go for the defensive fan, or will they try and make something happen? They know it's their last game. It's in their own hands to win it. But it'll be interesting if they go for the conservative approach or really get aggressive.
Well, both teams actually going to stack up as 4 or 5 and move through the jungle, just try and get some early wards down. Potentially looking at a lane swap here for Avant, especially away from that aggressive Corki Nautilus lane. But Pink Bomey there going to lay down some wards, and AV will do the same.
Be interesting to know how much practice they have against the support Nautilus, because it's really been facilitated by the big patch 5.5 changes. The change to his E in particular, be on such a lower cooldown, you can engage much earlier and just go in there for brawly fights. If you compare Thresh and Nautilus, okay, they do the same thing. They're both very good at engage, but Thresh has a ranged auto attack, so it's a much safer champion in a 2v1 than Nautilus, who might have to potentially overextend to get turret damage. So in a lane swap, I definitely prefer the Thresh. Of course, you have the disengage option. I mean, Nautilus is like a Blitzcrank that has to go into melee range himself. He's even higher risk than Blitzcrank in that situation. So you take the balanced defense and offense coming through from Thresh every day.
I mean, Brawler is no stranger to the Blitzcrank, though.
Sure.
So going to feel comfortable on a champion like Nautilus. Seems like he will just break out in the standard lanes. Pink Bomey going to start down on his Krugs and move to the red, and we'll have Gromp into blue for Shelby.
But you can see that Sudden Fear actually starting the Krugs on top of a ward. So the early ward advantage definitely comes through for Avant. And it'll be interesting to see whether they change the jungle pathing with this extra information, as Porky actually spots out Christmas trees.
Yeah, wonderful play there from Porky. How many times have we seen a Scion at a camp trying to solo it? So Porky runs in, gets him off, and actually might even force him to move to another camp.
And so the viewers might wonder, how do you work that out? That particular camp wasn't warded, but the thing you remember is that all the other camps were warded, specifically the Raptors were warded, so they knew very well that if he was going to start a camp, if he hadn't showed up in lane, it had to be Wolves. That was the only realistic camp. You go for the low health camps rather than necessarily the Gromp or the bigger camps. And look, good scouting from Porky, sign of a top laner. Still going to pick up the camp, but going to be into lane so much later, going to miss so many more creeps.
Yeah, and the hook just missing there for Brawler down the bottom as well. Good juke back there from Maz and Juni. And we actually, as we said, are going to break into standard lanes, but the early trading already happening here in the bottom side, and that's Moon getting that early advantage on Corki.
Yeah, I mean, look, he got the level 2. That was the big consideration. Opened up the potential for aggression with the hook being skilled at level 2. Going to try and control this lane. Not the best lane early for the Kalista. But when you pick up attack speed and a bit of movement speed, you can actually use that martial poise to dodge the fairly slow-moving Phosphorus Bomb. The lane goes better for Kalista.
Yeah, in the top lane now as well, we have Aurelia versus Sion. Going to be fairly split, although Sion does do decent damage, especially if you can charge up that Q on 5.5. But as expected, going to be a pretty big farm fest in the top.
But see, who does the farm fest... who's in the advantage of that? You have to say it's Aurelia getting closer and closer to her items without being in a lane swap, getting the standard lanes. It means the Trinity Force, we're talking about 17 minutes, not 23 minutes. We're talking about the armor items coming in that much earlier. And the mid-game spike, it's going to have to be accelerated for Sudden Fear, or they're going to have a very strong Aurelia diving the backline.
And for Sudden Fear, it's can they get an early advantage here? And you have to think, looking at the very early game in particular, that a lot of that falls to the junglers. Here's a good hook lance for Brawler and for Moon. Going to get aggressive. Juni takes a good chunk of damage, and Nautilus really bullying out in these early levels.
Yeah, with all three abilities, he's shrugging off the damage, and you can see the trade advantage landslide in Sudden Fear's advantage. Avant, they're going to have to play tricky. Again, they probably play against this lane maybe once, maybe twice, maybe not even the complete lane, maybe not the Corki Nautilus combination. It's a new thing. It's relatively new. And to throw a curveball like this, it's a lot for Avant to consider.
Yeah, can confirm this is Nautilus's first outing in the OPL, so at least have a play.
But I mean, even
here.
in scrims pastry time, it's only been 5.5 for what, a week and a half? There hasn't been a lot of time for this to really become a thing and catch on. So it's just not something they're going to have very much practice. And as you mentioned, at the top level, none at all.
Well, it's something that, you know, Sudden Fear, we mentioned, need to get a win here. So going to start things off with a bit of a different pick here in the Nautilus. Shelby going to clear out some wards on his Vi and just, you know, get aggressive. Try and use that Raptor sense to get a bit of vision down. And this is, as always, the big influence in the early stages. You have to favor maybe the early aggression here for the Lee Sin, but Shelby, especially once he hits 6, is no slouch to ganking or even invading an enemy jungle.
And look, via pre-6 ganks, you have to respect the damage that comes through, but you know who doesn't have to respect them? Ezreal. Ezreal will be able to get away. Actually, Vi's in the bottom. We could see 3v3.
Yeah, Bomey's here as well. They've actually gone in aggressive already. Juni going to look to go down here as Moon goes aggressively forward. Maz does not get a flash forward actually from Moon, but he can't complete it. Throws out the hook, and Brawler cleans it out for the second.
Brawler actually kills Thresh with the dredge line. That was very nice there. Dredge line to death. Don't see that very often. Normally Nautilus coming out of the jungle, but still, a notable kill.
Yeah, Shelby now going to have to clean up whatever he can. Just bolt breakers through the minions, and chunks them down with these AoE from these E there as Apaps. In the mid, very comfy here against the RE in the early stages, and you can see slowly pushing in with a very slight CS lead.
Just returning to the bottom lane trade. Maz and Junior just far too aggressive. They knew they had the advantage. They thought maybe it was going to be 3v2, but even in a 3v2, they were at, what, 100 health each? There was no realistic way for them to take on that trade. They had the Ignite advantage, so maybe they calculated at the start that they might be able to win a trade, but certainly it did not go that way. Now it's a big laning advantage for Sudden Fear.
It's a really nice counter gank timing almost there from Pink Bomi, who getting off to the start he wants here on his Lee Sin. You can see the Stalker's Blade completed already for the early Chilling Smite, and Vi with the Trailblazer going to be a bit more of a ganking pressure sort of situation for a Pink Bomi. And Trailblazer going to look to clear a bit faster, get towards that level 6 nice and swiftly.
Yeah, it is going for the Chilling Smite. We've seen a lot of skirmishes Saber. I actually saw 2 of them in our first game on patch 5.5. In this situation, though, Chilling Smite makes sense on Lee Sin. He had a few nerfs targeted towards his E ability in particular. So just, again, a bit more gap close. He already has so much gap close the moment he picks up a Sightstone, even with his Trinket Ward. But, you know, the Chilling Smite, another option.
Yeah, I mean, a fine option here. And again, quite a bit's changed here on this patch. You can see Sun, Barmy Cinder now, so building in towards a Sunfire Cape now, you have to think. Tear down for Ezreal as well, and M for Min. I love this choice especially. Nice and aggressive early on. Does have a quick sheen.
It does have a quick sheen. Look, he's winning trades already. It's just going to make him win trades even stronger. Of course, Scales on AP. There's the ult.
Yeah, ulti there for Shelby. Apaps forced to flash out of the charm, but does get out successfully. Ulti. So teleport coming in for Christmas Trees. There's your ulti as he's going to run in, but Pink Bomi can't quite close the distance. Christmas Trees will just run back to the top lane after throwing down a Trinket Ward, but gank attempt thwarted.
So I'm going to have to return to my earlier words about engaging on an Ezreal after you get the ultimate. You have to get rid of that Arcane Shifter. They have so much mobility. It was under his turret with the flash. There was just no kill potential. And Barrier, it's got the most selfish defensive stats out of any of the options. So this Ezreal, he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, you can sort of tell, even just from the summoner spell choices, which is a great highlight there. Abaps just wants to survive his lane and get towards the next step of his build, and that's the question for me. I imagine we're going to see a Trinity Force here, but is there any merit to the blue build at all in this team comp?
I mean, you look down. I mean, the blue build, it helps you kite melee champions. They do have 2 melee champions that are going to dive in terms of Vi and Aurelia, but I think you need the turret damage. I think you need the damage in general that comes through from Trinity Force. Of course, you get that earlier power spike, theoretically, if you get the fast Trinity Force. So, look, I personally would elect towards the Trinity Force, but there is value in a blue build Ezreal.
Yep, so options here for Paps. Of course, that's, I guess, the nice thing is that mid Ezreal especially, fairly streamlined in the early stages, so you can opt in to a different build if you like. Christmas Trees, though, that early Cinder, we already talked about Science Wave Clear before this patch, but it seems like it's even stronger now in the top lane.
And I just want to return to something you said. You were talking about the fact that he picked up a Bambi Cinder, probably going to get a Sunfire. Absolutely, there's eventually going to get a Sunfire, but there's no need to rush that item. Just having the Wave Clear early, you can still, you know, you've got health. It's basically like picking up a Giant Spell, except you get a little bit less health, and you get the utility and the ability to push the wave. So Bambi Cinder, an excellent 1,000 gold item is, my goodness, Maz takes a huge burst of damage. You forget 350 base damage, because usually it's going through minions and getting down towards the cap, but the instant damage, it was huge.
Yeah, when it's not capped, it's pretty ridiculous damage. So Maz going to be forced to recall actually back towards his base. So he'll go for a bit of a shopping trip there. Got a Vampiric Scepter right now, actually, not too much more. Might be considering a second purchase, but just a couple spare potions and 79 now, 80 to 53 CS. Struggle street in the bottom lane for the Avant duo.
You can tell, because he had 1,000 gold, if he was going to go for a Bilgewater, he would have picked it up. So clearly going to go for a Bloodthirster first. There has been a movement towards Bloodthirster first over the Hurricane. Gives you lane control, gives you a sustain. You can struggle in lane matchups, especially against a Corki who's pushing in your turret and in general been dominating this lane up 28 CS, so definitely in a good advantage. You just have these weird, awkward times where do you buy the Berserker's Greaves? Do you just try and get as much stats as possible? No, he's going to delay it. It just means that, again, he wants to freeze the lane and stay away from action, whereas Corki, expect him to start rotating.
Yeah, and that is, I guess, the nice thing is that, you know, if you feel like you need to do a bit more pushing or a bit more mid-game team fighting, just get the Hurricane eventually. I feel like too many people saw Hurricane as an item where, oh, it'll transition me nicely, it's really smooth, but just save it for later, get your selfish combat stats, and just get through your lane.
Well, the issue is if you were losing a lane, let's say for that example, in this particular lane where Corki's already pushed down a turret, you get the Hurricane very early. Okay, theoretically you can fight team fights, but maybe your team comp's not ready for team fights. Maybe you're not looking to contest the next dragon. Then all you have is a Hurricane which is going to auto-push the wave. You don't even give yourself the chance to just last hit and keep the wave and get as much minions as possible. And you can perhaps negatively snowball your lane just for the pickup of an item.
Yeah, and I guess the one interesting thing here is that we actually haven't had a dragon being looked at yet. A bit of early vision being contested for us. Brawler. Unified Junie does land the dredge lane there. Snare there as well from the passive. And just a bit of poke from the Corki, but nothing over the top. Sudden Fear trying to group together, maybe looking for a dragon, and a good time for it. Shelby's in the top lane.
Sudden Fear, of course, in their last matchup, picked up the 4 dragons against Legacy. Their dragon control and early rotations has been wonderful, so probably be no surprise. At this point, Maz, sitting on gold, basically has, what, 800 gold worth of stats bought after the start of the game. You can't look to fight this dragon, so smart of Avant, just back away.
Yep, nice dragon there for Sudden Fear. Shelby, of course, being in that top side meant that not too many options there. Sentinel did spot them off, so they have a good idea of at least the rough timer, if not the exact timer, but the early lead here for Sudden Fear. And I love that you mentioned their matchup against Legacy. So many advantages were built by the team, but they couldn't close it out. And that's going to be a big thing for them to test today. They've got 2 good teams here in Avant and Chiefs to play. They've got 2 intense matches moving in towards the relegation. You know, play well, get your early advantages, get your experience up, but try and figure out what it is about a team that helps you close games better.
And it's the exciting thing about the OPL is that these teams that qualify through the OCS, they've had, at this point, I believe 12 games so far, start to hone in, to start to learn about what it takes to play at the highest level of competitive play, as I believe we have a pause coming through. They've had that time to learn. You've seen massive improvements. Look at Fauna, of course, starting off without a win for so long. And then, you know, 2-0 the last time, one of those games against the Chiefs, by far the most surprising and exciting result so far in the OPL this season. It's the same with Sudden Fear. They ran that game against Legacy for, what, 29, 30 minutes of the game and just couldn't get it done. That's maybe just a reality of the shot calling of a fairly new team against a veteran team like Legacy, especially with Minkuel coming into the lineup. A lot of games of experience at the highest level in Oceanic Gaming, but they'll watch the VOD, they'll learn from it. They still want to pick up as many wins as possible. So, again, we're just going to look for better performance this time.
Yep, so we jump back into the game, of course, and I love that you mentioned, you know, that learning and stuff. Pink Bomi actually in that game was 100% kill participation against Legacy, even towards the very end of that loss. And, you know, added here again, an assist and a kill at 2-0. Sudden Fear, everything going right early on.
See how this game comes up. I think we're getting some action in the top lane.
Yeah, Forky in trouble, actually. They're going to go back towards his turret. Gets slowed, though, by the roll. Pink Bomi going to clean up the next kill. And Christmas Tree is a good team up there. And a nice gank now. He's in the bottom lane. Brawler could be in trouble. Gets caught by Kenzie. And Shelby just kills him there. The ultimate not even finishing.
And Kenzie had already rotated to the bottom lane, so suddenly found himself in between 2 people and pick power that he couldn't deal with. You talked about 100% kill participation. Bomi, he's leaving it all out in the Rift again today. 2-0-1.
Yeah, he's Lee Sin looking very strong for their next game here against Avant in the early stages. At least top tower did go down as well, by the way. So 2 towers now complete as Avant look to answer, but the wave will get cleared out with a bit of help there from Apaps as Ezreal. So M for Moon clearing out well, got his Sheen and his Phage. This is always the big point in the Trinity Force users, and you have to think Corki in about 2 minutes going to be ready to go with that big Trinity Force.
Absolutely,
completed.
and you definitely can't say that about Maz. Even if you pick up the Bloodthirst, it's going to be delayed, and it only really gives you sustain and decent laning presence. It doesn't really offer you much in a team fight, especially early. The Rend AD scaling isn't going to be a massive factor. He doesn't even have Berserker's Greaves. You need attack speed for these auto-attack based champions, like Twitch, for example, with his Expunge. The Rend is very, very similar, so with the low attack speed, until he picks up at least the Berserker's Greaves, like I said, maybe even the Recurve Bow, isn't going to be wanting to look to team fight.
Yeah, Raptor Sense actually going to find a pink ward there for Pink Bomi, so he'll clear that out. That was very sneakily placed by Avant. Maz and Junie have actually rotated into the mid now as well, so looking to pressure down Ezreal's turret. And we pretty much mention this every time we see mid Ezreal in particular, but apart from that ulti, very low on the wave clear.
It doesn't have a lot of wave clear. Of course, because you're in mid lane, your gap closer gives you a lot more escapability. We saw that when we saw Shelby pay a visit to mid, but you do pick up blue buff, so your ult's on pretty short cooldown. You basically use Mystic Shot off cooldown, decreasing all your other cooldowns by 1 second. You have the blue buff for just flat cooldown reduction. Your ult, it's up a lot, but you know, you use it for opportunity. We already saw it snipe Maz in the bottom lane and just change the tide of that lane because it forced her back. But in the mid lane, every, 60, 50 seconds, you have a bit of wave clear. Until then, you just try and rely on your auto attacks as much as possible.
Yeah, and that mid lane might be where Sudden Fear are going to head next year, because we've reached a very crucial point of the game here. Apep still charging up at that tier going through. Sunfire kept down there for Christmas trees, but most importantly, Corki has been finished with that Trinity Force, so We mentioned it a lot with the Corki specifically. Sudden Fear have got a good lead here. What do they do next now that their Corki's powered up and got his first big item?
I think the bigger consideration, though, just looking at how these lanes have come out, goes to what Avant are doing. Kensty's rotated to the bottom lane and opting away from that 2v2 Avant. Now we see it's been Ezreal in the 1v2 in the mid lane. So finally, Maz has had free farm. Ezreal doesn't have CC, doesn't have the burst damage. He's actually sitting on 3,200 gold. He has no way to actually impact Maz whatsoever. So they've used the fact that Ahri has an escape, even in a very long lane, to just lane against the Corki, Trinity force Corki into a lane, and not allow him to rotate and pick up turrets. So Sudden Fear, what they need to do actually is to start getting the swaps on, get this Corki into the mid lane, and especially start shopping here perhaps, because Dragon's in a minute and a half. He's trying to rush down a straight up Trinity force buy. He won't have time to get to Dragon if he tries to farm 500 gold in the next minute and a half.
Yeah, and he might be trying to go back now. Looks like he wants to try and finish that recall up. Christmas trees in the top lane. Big pressure onto Porky actually, using their E, which is actually maxed here. EW that maxes here for 5.5 Scion. Not that Q.
I mean, it definitely in the Q in the jungle makes a lot of sense. When you're in the minion wave, the fact that you can hit a minion and just like Twisted Fate with his red card, wild card can push a wave means you still end up maxing the E, even though, as you say, it's less mana efficient than it used to be.
Yep, so strong stuff there. And a good rotation by Sudden Fear as well. Grouping up together now that the next Dragon's back up. But Ezreal still needs to finish that shop. About a minute left here in Apap's. Going to have just enough time, you have to think, to get the Trinity Force, which he's now got in his inventory. Two very nice big items stacked there for the ADs.
Didn't even consider that, of course, Longsword builds into Trinity Force, so less gold required, I believe, is about 3,300. It means they're not going to be able to clear out the wards and prep for Dragon early, as Moon does take a charm in bottom. They'll back away, but double Trinity Force. Good luck fighting against this huge power spike coming through from Sudden Fear.
Yeah, Kenzie level 11 in that trade there as well, but even sort of had to get away from the burst of Corki. Sudden Fear are very, very strong at this point in the game. It's just a matter of what Avant want to do, and Shelby might be just giving it up already, going to rotate to the top and maybe just try and trade for a tower.
And returning to Christmas trees, you mentioned the Sunfire Rush. It looks like that's what he did go for. I thought Frozen Heart after the Cinder might be the smarter buy against, what, 3 auto attackers, including a Kalista who stacks attack speed and an Aurelia whose damage ability scales of attack speed. But he's gone for Sunfire. It's another early spike to consider. And you're right, they're not even on the same side as the Dragon.
Oh, I love this as well. Sudden Fear going to push it into Kenzie, going to get forced back. Death Charge will chase him in. Pink Bowman going to ward up very far, but Kenzie uses all 3 charges of his ulti and flashes out and will just get away. Sudden Fear though caught Brawler. That was one interaction there as he dredgelands a bit of terrain. Kick will get him out there. Brawler is going to die to Junie, but Porky is forced off out from under his turret. A bit of a misplay there with Brawler dying, but Maslow as well. Avant cannot contest still.
That was an insane load of geometry happening there with hook priorities happening and all sorts of things. Leads to Brawler's death, but they pick up the turret, and as long as they also pick up the Dragon, it's a big win for Sudden Fear, so they'll take that. And it works out just fine.
Yeah, should be able to get it here as well. A bit risky, though, as Avant are moving back in, and maybe Sudden Fear think better of it. Don't want to force too aggressively here. Junie's even moved in. Paps is in the area, but he's going to Arcane Shift out, and Avant now might get their first Dragon.
Avant, they have more members, but Christmas Trees has the teleport. They could potentially go for this. And yep, the teleport's being channeled.
Yep, Port comes through there. Dragon going to get low. Pink Bowman going to run in, but doesn't steal it. Goes down instead, but Christmas Trees now in the middle of the team. Moon's been hooked, though. He's going to try and dish out the damage. Kenzie going to dive back in as Brawler comes in for a depth charge. Porky slowed by a roar, though, as Pap will jump on top of him and auto him for the last kill. A 2-for-1 trade. No, a 1-for-1 actually, and Avant get away with the Dragon.
It's hard to really consider how this is all gone because there's been multiple advantages. A turret in the top lane, turret in the mid lane, a lot happening. All 3 outer turrets down for Sudden Fear. This is the same situation they found themselves in against Legacy, not the Dragon monopolization. Bomi almost picked it up. He's been so on form with the Lee Sin that I can understand going for the opportunistic contest, but they're going to keep pushing, and that's the thing you have to worry from Avant. When their engages are down, when their ults are down, you don't have a lot to deal with the double AD pushing.
Bait score coming in. They're going to look for a hook. Good dodge there from Brawler. Will get out from under it as Shelby even going to look aggressively with no ult. He just wants to try and get in and posture for a Vault Breaker. Porky coming in as well. But everyone eating Mystic Shots, and Avant are going to try and counter push. But Sudden Fear are all grouped as 4 with Corki going back for a buy.
And Corki definitely needs to go back. Almost spotted out by a ward put down from Porky. So Moon lives to fight another day. Picks up a BF, so that's more wave clear. That's more turret damage. The Aegis is completed by Bomi, already serving up the stats for his team. Unless a charm hits, If they can position Christmas trees at the front of a fight, they have an excellent siege unit, even against a high-engaged comp like Avant.
And everyone's powering up here as far as items go as well. So I do want to draw your attention to Chelby actually over on the Avant side in the jungle. We know that he likes to be aggressive. He does build damage on his Vi sometimes, but that is the makings of a Blade of the Ruined King.
Blade of the Ruined King is something different for competitive Vi. Usually Trinity Force is opted into, but it's so expensive. I mean, if you think about it, 3,200 gold compared to 3,800 gold, not that much more expensive, but it's more burst damage, and it's just, they're looking to pick someone and instant kill them, either Paps or Emphamoon during the Assault and Battery, the Blade of the Ruined King, and whatever follow-up damage that Kensti can put on. As Johnny might be caught, but is able to walk away to the relative safety of the darkness of the Avant jungle.
Is the big Scion a potential thought there as well for Chelby, knowing that he has to get through what's going to be a super tank towards the later stages of the game?
And with all the armor stacking, Blade of the Ruined King's not going to be doing a lot of damage. The active especially is going to give him no sustain and just do a pittance of damage. So, I mean, it's a consideration. Just the Blade active, potentially just to steal the movement speed and try and peel off the Scion might be a relevant stat, but this is a burst-centric build. He wants to burst down Ezreal and Corki, and I guess on a budget. It does build out a bilge ward. It gives you a lot of lifesteal. If they can get that first kill, the lack of armor might not be relevant if they can kill one of these double AD.
Roll a good snare there as the poke is going to come through. Juni very low, does actually go down to a Mystic Shot by Apap, so much damage early on already.
I mean, the poke coming through from Mystic Shot on Rockets, it's over 1,000 rage. It needs to be respected. I didn't expect the kill to come through, but the Phosphorus Bomb registered as well, and this is where the pushing looked excellent.
Yeah, great zoning here from Christmas Trees as Scion as well. Just going to roll in, gets Porky out of the way, and they'll take a tier 2 turret with ease.
They do not have minion waves pushing the bottom lane. This was their big issue against Legacy, is they did everything except serve the minions up to help them. They were always in situations where they were trying to break the base. 30 minutes into the game with 4 dragons, they couldn't find an opportunity to break the base because their minion waves were always working against them. I mean, minion wave control is one of the higher level theories in League of Legends. You definitely need an analyst and really considering all the options. They just couldn't get it rolling, and that's why it was so critical that finally when Legacy won a team fight, they broke the base instantly after 35 minutes of frustration from Sudden Fear.
Yeah, Porky now going to clear out the top. Does have his Trinity Force, but lacking any other tank components. So a bit squishy right now on the Aurelia. Locket now completed for Pink Burmy as well, so Lee Sin good to go in that front, and Christmas Trees not going for that Frozen Heart. Actually looks for a Spirit Visage second, I think.
It's interesting to see him pick up magic damage. I guess he's hoping that he's eating every line skill shot coming through from Ahri and just tanking all the magic damage. If they kill Ahri, there's no other magic damage. I like the Frozen Heart because it's cooldown reduction, so it's more peeling from the Scion. The fact that he's, you know, a super tank, he's going to be standing around for a while. The passive is going to get a lot of use. The magic resist, look, it's going to work just fine. They're going to look to kill him, but it's still Scion.
Yeah, I don't know how killing a Scion goes, and Porky and Shelby just sort of give up in a bit of frustration. They're W doing quite a good chunk of damage there, as well as Pink Bomi going to come in now. Juni actually has to ride out there. Porky getting free with the Lantern. Wards will get cleared as well. Good rotation though by Kensi. Maz going to get a lot of good damage done to the turret, but can't complete it. Paps returns. His Muraman has already transformed.
It's still crazy that after, what, 5 to 6 seconds of free orders on the mid tower, it was so healthy to begin with that they can't take it down. That's just the reality of laning against double AD. Couldn't get early damage onto the turret. Had to respect the high skirmish pressure of Burmy on Lee Sin, and after his previous performance, would have been MVP in a victory, you'd have to think. A lot of respect coming through, very deserved. This is the third dragon, and with a team like this, it's 1-to-1, so at least it's not going to be the third dragon pickup, so the movement speed won't be available. It still looks like it's going to be contested, but Avant, they're hanging back. They realize they don't have a lot of defensive minion waves or a lot of ward control to really try and pick up any advantages.
It'll just be that third total here, and I think Sudden Fear have made the intelligent trades for this stage of the game. Take the towers first and then think about the dragons. Giving up one, not too bad. They're quite confident. You have to think about taking the rest of them, and why wouldn't you be given all the advantages that you've got coming through? Major items are starting to get completed as well. Emphamoon actually working on Infinity Edge as his second item, it looks like, so a very carry-centric build on. Rabadon's is now done for Kensti. Porky in the top will take out the turret there as well. So Avant is scaling up, but right now Sudden Fear just that much stronger.
And Trinity Force Infinity Edge is a huge amount of burst damage, and we've already been talking about the fact that Shelby's not building any armor. They really need to ensure that they're engaging onto preferably the Corki, and take him down before he's able to get any auto attacks. Trinity Force, Infinity Edge procs will be massive against what is at the moment just a one-tank lineup, and that tank, Corki, still hasn't finished his first big armor item.
Yeah, and as a result, Avant just can't fight for that next dragon, so it will go straight over to Sudden Fear as they'll now look to get continue their pushing here. Top or bottom would be reasonable options, probably looking to clear out as many tier 2 turrets as possible, but don't want to spend too much time. Shelby has now finished his Blade of the Ruin King as well, and Kensti powering up on 2 items as well. Can't give them too much time here. Sudden Fear definitely have to continue pressure, but get your wards down, rotate to your turrets, and honestly, you mentioned it already, but control those side waves and just let them work for you.
They still haven't been able to do that. It's about equalized next to their inner turret on the top lane, but side winnings have been working against them. Kensti in particular has been rotating to bottom a lot of the time. Doesn't have teleport, but of course a lot of flat wave clear. With all the AP picked up from the Death Cap, can pick up these waves very quickly. And again, the waves are working against them, so they have to either go for a dive or make very assertive plays. They've already shown that picking up 4 dragons wasn't a win condition for them. They could not snowball that into a victory. So the minion waves, they need to be pushed. They need to take advantage of the item timings as well. Kalista still doesn't have what should have been about a 20-minute item build. The Bloodthirster into the Hurricane. About a few hundred gold away from the Hurricane. The moment that's completed, you don't focus that Kalista. The Ren sets begin. There's still the potential for a team fight win because the only person itemizing for armor so far is the Sunfire Cape from Sion.
Yeah, and I actually found your Frozen Heart Purpose, Smithy. It's hiding all the way in the bottom there. Brawler has been saving his pennies and picked it up.
Not many supports pick up a 25-minute Frozen Heart, but that's the pickup coming through from Brawler. Put all his gold into it. Does have a Sight Stone, so everyone can back away. Still a support. The Sight Stone's completed. The Moby Boots, he can roam around, put down wards, but having the Frozen Heart before even the Hurricane is completed, it's going to do double duty. It does so much work. I mean, triple duty. Normally the jungler's auto-attack focus, but this is Blade the Ruin King. It's going to do a lot of work in this case.
Yeah, and I think Sudden Fear just have to continue applying pressure, and Kensti is being so troublesome in the bottom lane, continuing to wave clear. We talk about Ari a lot as a big split pusher, and Kensti is demonstrating very well right now.
It's interesting that Christmas Trees hasn't been the one to send to answer the split push, because he's the only person that won't die in a single burst rotation coming through from the Ari. Corki does a lot of damage, actually opted into the Last Whisper instead of the Infinity Edge. There's armor on Aurelia, but especially on Corki, a champion who has naturally 40 AoE armor penetration. Don't know about the Last Whisper.
And I like this look here from Sudden Fear, you know, sending people into the top, starting up another siege. But I feel like Corki and Sion, who are now crossing over, just wanted to have swapped spots already, maybe 5-10 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's the big consideration. And Avant, I cut off one of your points to point out they were the ones playing very strategically. Avant had been very smart in their just where they put their champions. It wasn't necessarily level 1. It wasn't with a lane swap. It was, again, the case of Maz couldn't really enter that lane. He was having such a struggle against the Corki Nautilus lane that he had to be moved to mid. Thankfully, they had a pretty big Ari, already had a needlessly large rod on top of a Morellonomicon. They could rotate bottom, pick up waves. Nobody could realistically take her in a 2v1 or a 2v2. And that strategic hole, it's been continued to the point they're finally getting Sion bottom, but the turret's going to fall.
Yeah, Christmas Tree's a little late to pick that up as we do pop back from our brief pause there. Avant, again, staving off the pressure in the top side of the map. Pink Bowman going to clear some wards out, and Brawler, even if they want to, they could maybe look at a tower dive, but Kensi just so annoying. Christmas Trees can teleport out now, does have that available. Porky going to get initiated on. Burst damage coming through, does E out there, but the depth charge already been used. A teleport coming out for Christmas Trees. Pink Bowman going to get hooked up next as well. Porky now going to be the next to dive on. Is Lee Sin going to dive over there, but they'll take the turret. Used a lot of cooldowns for it, but they get what they want.
Remember, they used an answering teleport just to answer a turret. They did not pick up an extra turret. That was a swap, effectively, for their inner turret using the teleport. So Avant now have the teleport advantage for the next 5 minutes. And if they use that cooldown to get more of an advantage, that's an overall trade win for Avant.
Yeah, Frozen Heart done now for Porky as well, the man with that teleport. So getting tankier here, got his Ruby Crystal as well. So starting to build up Shelby as well as Kensi might have caught on him for Moon, but Pap's going to come in as well. Good damage, but the Dark Passage will keep him safe, and that ult just misses him.
It only misses because they had a smart lane walk coming from Juni. First, an excellent Dark Passage and the ward. doing support duty is Juni.
And now the Baron might be looked at actually by Sudden Fear. I think you have to think they've intentionally cleared out the top side of the map for vision, and they're going to go on to it. This double AD comp does tremendous amounts of damage to this Baron, but a ward goes down by Juni. Smart stuff as Shelby going to get peeled off now by a hook. Pink Bowman going to run in, but the ulti used by Christmas Tree doesn't quite get in there though. And Sudden Fear have to back off. Shelby maybe even going back in a little deep perhaps, but Christmas Tree's so tanky on the Scion, regenerating away with his Spirit Visage.
Still a few seconds away till the depth charge is available from Nautilus, so couldn't have quite the CC Wombo coming out from the support list. They have to back away, no advantage is gotten, and of course they take a big chunk of health trying to take down the Baron. It's a good response from Avant. There was no way for Sudden Fear to rush it down. It was at 6,000 health when they popped over the ward, so the result, it's just neutral for everyone. Yeah,
Porky in the bottom side now actually going to continue the work that Kenzie started there and push that away. Does, again, have his teleport available, so he can be wherever he needs to be. He's just going to continue to apply pressure and maybe most importantly, just buy time for Avant.
And they need to buy time, especially for Maz. He's got attack speed boots, the Berserker Greaves, and just the Bloodthirster Hurricane. It's very delayed, about 8-9 minutes. It could be useful in a fight, but because we have a Frozen Heart support, now the Randuin's almost completed for Scion. The item timing is late enough that Avant need to bring this to a point where the difference between Maz and either Moon and Paps is negligible.
Yeah, now Christmas Trees is in the bottom side of the map, so, you know, kind of recognize that, okay, this isn't working. We need to send the man with our teleport, or even the one that's just safe, like you said, in the bottom side. So they make the right rotation. No teleport yet, but Sudden Fear grouping up. They're going to try and push down as a 4-stack. This is exactly where their comp wants to be. And Moon goes aggressive with the Valkyrie, but will not be punished for it.
But there's the strategic hole, still 2.5 minutes on the teleport cooldown where Porky can make a play, and Sion's the only person apart from maybe Nautilus that can eat a charm. That's kind of another issue, is that when they're a 4-man group and Sion split away, you have to respect the Ahri engage. It can be devastating.
Oh, Kenzie though now getting basically jumped on by Christmas Trees. A Scion, the blue buff, will go over to Corki. Actually, Pink Bomi safeguards over to his team, and Dragon is back up, so Sudden Fear going to start it, and a third would be crucial here in what's been a very rotation-based last 20 minutes.
Actually has been a very rotation-based last 20 minutes. They're going to get this Dragon, again uncontested. Avant finally want to pick up that outer mid-tower. It's lasted 30 minutes, but it looks like it'll probably go down.
Yeah, Christmas Tree's ulting in. A good ult there coming from Ezreal. Maz going to get locked up there. It actually flashes out from the queue. Now Kenzie going to row back in, but Maz just gets ulted, and Moon takes him. A great kick there. Moves back Shelby through Juni. There's Thresh actually getting the kill onto Ezreal, but they're jumping on Porky now, who's going to be the next target. Just CC for days there. That's the Nautilus way, and a 2-for-1 trade for Sudden Fear.
The PLCC of a Nautilus is immense, but he focused on Moon and allowed Paps to be killed in the backline. So Porky relieves a lot of the Baron pressure by taking down the Ezreal. There's a lot of damage to Baron, and also, of course, the attack speed. And there's another.
Yeah, Juni there gets killed by Moon, so a third kill actually for Sudden Fear. All told there, Sion in the bottom has to push the waves back though, and Sudden Fear only the kills. No other advantages quite yet.
And unfortunately, we said that a lot in the series of Legacy. We hope it's not going to be a recreation of that, but there's a lot of the same elements. The minion wave control, it still hasn't been there from Sudden Fear. They're getting the kills. Their skirmishing is wonderfully strong. It's just the actual executing of win conditions that is the only thing that's missing from their game.
And Moon, it's buying everything in the shop at this point. Gone a bit back and forth on this build, but now has a Bilgewater Cutlass as well. So I like all of the items in separate entities. Blade's fine, Infinity Edge is fine, well, Whisper's fine, but maybe not all at once.
I mean, the Blade's good against Aurelia Vi, especially. Being able to peel away a melee diver, give yourself movement speed, buy your time for, say, your Valkyrie to come back off cooldown. The BF Sword, it was vindicated. The moment after the BF Sword, they killed Johnny under turret. The extra AoE coming through from the rockets and the Phosphorus Bomb, even the pushing potential was very useful. It's just weird to see him split between options. And maybe with the BF Sword now he's considering going for a QSS into Mercurial Scimitar with the magic resist that he's picked up, but he's so split between options. It's just not a gold-efficient build at this point.
No, and Paps now returning to the bottom and actually getting to pick up a bit of extra farm, but we've noted again, Christmas Trees is the man for the split push job, and these Psychowaves have just been so annoying. Even Porky in the top side right now, going to eat quite a lot of damage from the Scion, but just clearing out the waves, continuing again. The whole theme from Avant is buy time as Brawler eats a charm, but Moon going to go in as a result there. Phosphorus Bomb lands as well, and Kenzie forced to ultimate away.
It draws out the ultimate. That's still a small victory. It gives you 90 seconds before she can really impact the fight again. Shoots out the ultimate, not quite.
Yeah, not quite there, but Sudden Fear now can aggress onto this tier 2 turret in the bottom side of the map. So Paps ready to go, has his poke lined up with the Muramana active and going to clear it a couple wards. Sion in the top side, teleport back up. Perfect movement now from Sudden Fear.
And now, of course, Kenzie doesn't have ultimate, so a lot of the kill pressure, even if they get a pick, is minimal. I don't know if Avant can look to fight, and with the teleport, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I love this again, using the Sion to get on top of the wave, zone everyone out, just get aggressive onto Porky. He can tank plenty of damage. Actually, Porky going to get kicked back there, snared for days again. Tries to flash up, but doesn't go anywhere. Now Christmas Tree's going to come back in as Kenzie gets low. Maz goes down for the Nautilus double. Shelby maybe going to be the next as well. Zenfamoon gets aggressive. Pink Bomi going to get that one as Juni goes down for the fourth. Going to complete a perfect ace, and Sudden Fear find their fight.
Yeah, Sudden Fear, they don't have a minion wave, but there's one coming. They're going to take at minimum the inhibitor. Looking at the death timers, they might even be able to finish.
They might. They are going to go for it as well. Zenfamoon going to tank the first one up here, and Christmas Tree's Umbrella in the front line space, tanking whatever they can. The minion wave will join them eventually. Even ulti there for Paps for a bit of extra attack speed, and Sudden Fear. It only took one fight, but boy, was it a good one.
Yeah, still a few seconds. You have to say Sudden Fear played around this double AD very smart. They never got the minions control, but they never need to after that teleport, and specifically the dive. The reason why that dive worked, Sion was tanking the turret the whole time, already super tanky, and it opened up the double AD to just dump on the back line.
Beautiful stuff there from Sudden Fear, just looking so strong. And we kind of said it, a couple of strategic calls here with the sideways, but those last endgame rotations were just wonderful to watch.
Absolutely, just rotating to the bottom lane, knowing they had the turret damage, especially with the cooldown down in terms of the Ahri. It worked really well.
Yeah, we have a replay actually to show you there as well. So let's jump straight into, looks like the last dive of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So they've all grouped up. This is after they got a bit of pressure onto this turret. Note, the key thing about this replay, Kenzie does not have ultimate. Kenzie's the one who can wreck the back. And look at his items. Death Cap, Morellonomicon, Void Staff, and even working towards Azonia's. 004, but so much CS. And it's against a very squishy lineup outside of, especially with the backline. The damage here comes from very squishy members. So we'll roll the tape. They start pushing towards the turret. Sion comes in. This is the part where things get good. They're starting to get the damage down, and Sion's just buying time. He's just at the front eating skill shots. There's nothing they can do. The flash engage looks optimistic, but remember, this is Nautilus. An auto attack is already a CC. Then Sion dives in, tanking turret the whole time. And the double AD, we don't need to go into specifics. Corki and Ezreal, with these item timers, are doing massive damage. Both of them already have their last whispers. They get a few more picks, and they win the game.
Absolutely wonderful stuff there for Sudden Fear. You know what? They've got to do it again. A big matchup coming through now as well. They got to play the Chiefs.
They got to play the Chiefs. It's going to be a tough one, but anything's possible.
It is indeed. So we're going to buy a bit of a break here, but when we return, we are going to have Sudden Fear versus Chiefs. Massive game for both these teams. The last game of the Chiefs for the season. Couple minutes left. Don't go too far.